Okay, hello there. My name is Robert Epps. This is my week 3 discussion post, and I'm going to discuss the data that I placed into using Excel to work with this data and kind of extrapolate more information, why and how. My data set has come from 24 matches of a game called Command and Conquer Rivals that I play on a regular basis. Um, there's actually a lot of data to extrapolate from here. Um, so just real quick and try to keep it under 5 minutes. What I did was I went into my match history and just went kind of down, started at the bottom of the list from what was available, and then basically stacked that information into into my Excel spreadsheet, and uh, put information such as was it a win for me or was it a loss? Um, how many points were gained on the leaderboard overall? Um, the enemy that who won is in the left-hand column, who lost in the right-hand column. Put in the commanders and the units that were being used. For numerical data, I placed in the levels of the units that were being used on both sides, the day or time that it was being played. I'm using Excel spreadsheet to do some basic stuff here. So for instance, um, I keep an average of the unit level on this case right here. Um, so the time, the winners, the loser, and then kind of like a spread. So this number right here is the winner minus the loser. So if it's positive, how much higher was the winner than the loser in terms of their average levels on the numerical data, and vice versa. If it's a negative number, such as in this one case, how much lower was the winner compared to uh, compared to the loser? And that information, once again, going back to the game, what it is just looking at the various pieces of data that can be gained here. You know, it shows a unit level here, shows the commander, uh, the faction on either side, depending on uh, who's playing with faction and whatnot. So all of this information right here on each card is being compiled here, and I'm assuming it's relatively random in the sense that I just took this from the list, started from the bottom, and worked the way to the top here. So it's like a slice of one of my days. This is not actually from here, but it's like a slice of one of my days, like last week when I compiled the data. And looking at some of this data, let's take a look here. Um, Obviously, category-wise would be like, for instance, what faction you're playing with, which commander, or which units. And the big questions that I'm looking at um, here is, for instance, level spread. I put all of the matches in here. There are 15 matches where the levels were exactly even. They're basically maxed out on the levels for that particular league. But the ones where there's differences here, you can see that for 7 out of the 8 matches that were there was a separation in levels. 7 out of 8 times, the higher level was the winner. You know. Likewise, I kind of rearranged the data a little bit in categories here. First 0.5, 0.5 to 1, 1 to 2, that spread. Just kind of showing that most of these are going to, even if there's a difference, it's usually only a slight difference. So in this range, I probably wouldn't think of it mattering too much to the win-loss ratio, but um, it's there. And maybe perhaps with more data, you could see some of that. Now, there were 24 matches being drawn in here. So what I did was also, sorry, wrong sheet. What I did was draw in a win-loss ratio out of the 15 matches I won. That represents a 0.625 win-loss ratio, which makes sense. In fact, you can, out of the game, there's something interesting and nice that it actually shows you um, out of the decks that you play for any particular season. And I'm looking at this and kind of guessing. Let me see. I'm guessing there's about 230, 250 matches for this season so far. Um, out of my 2 best decks that I've been playing with, I get a 66% win rate and a 70% win rate with Nod here. And then, of course, if I play with a different deck and got lower rates occasionally, these are my 2 secondary decks and they don't win as much. And so looking at that, getting a 0.625, 24 matches out of somewhere between 230 and 250. representing about a sampling of 1/10 of all games. That matches up pretty well. So that's a good sign to me that this sample is decently randomized, even though it's just a linear slice. Um, so a good look there. Win 2-1. I also decided to take some of this information. For instance, I played out of these 24 GDI 10 times, nod 14 times, won with GDI 7 times, won with nods 8 times. And this is out of whatever deck I chose. So sometimes I may have had a slight difference. Sometimes, for instance, sometimes I play Nod with a Giga Cannon, and sometimes I play Nod with Inferno or something. So I can't tell you from those decks that are different. But overall, just looking at the factions, I can see that out of that slice, I've got a 0.57 win ratio with Nod, 0.7 with GDI. You play both sides from time to time. You can choose which side you play, but the game encourages you to play both sides. So if I was to enter in, say, a tournament and I could only pick one, I would pick GDI because that's my better ratio there. But there's that, and I can't control the enemies that I go up against, but I can see that they have a higher win ratio against me when they're playing Nod versus when they're playing GDI. So that's an interesting thing that I've extrapolated from the data here. I didn't really arrange this so much to look nice so much, but all the information is here. And there's other information that can be gathered. This game is primarily PvP, player versus player, and I know that there's a lot of things that the game looks at to match people up. I can pretty much guarantee you, based on some things that I've observed, and I talked about it in my week 2 post, that when you look at all of the individual pieces, I think the game keeps track of your win-loss ratio for every single unit that you see in your deck, and the win-loss ratio against you from every single unit, so that the game, it tries to balance out and it tries to give you like a 50% win-loss ratio as best it can. And there's other things that feed into why mine's a bit higher than 50%. I don't play enough games for it to get there to give you enough challenges, but there's a lot that can happen here, that can go down, and there's a lot of information and covariables and things that can be considered as to what the algorithm is doing to give you a win-loss. But as far as this, there are some things I think you can clearly extrapolate in terms of what deviates from my average win-loss ratio and what things play into that. So I'm over the time limit as it is, and I think the connection issues with my phone is kind of giving me an issue. So I'll go with that. But if any questions about this data, any additional things I should look for, if you're familiar with other questions, please let me know in the comments below, and we'll talk about that.